Hey kids, howdy, and welcome once again to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. We are here at the turn of the month. It's September 29th, and in a few days it'll be October. September was crazy!
We're done with the eclipse season?
Yeah. We're done with sort of the biggest, clunkiest, most difficult, month of the year.
Okay.
And that was last month because of what the outer planets were doing and what Mars did when he moved into Scorpio last week. So yeah, I would say after we survived last week, it's a little bit quieter. And I would say October is just like typical. And in fact, that gives me an opportunity my first announcement is that this Thursday is the first Thursday of October. So I'll be doing my global healing meditation, 7 p.m. Pacific time. It's on Zoom. It's, by the way, the same Zoom link every month forever. So it's not a new link every month. So if you have the old one in your email somewhere, sometimes people like, where do I find the link? We'll talk all about October as a kind of slightly less intense month. Although I'm going to be really curious as an astrologer, Zoe, that we're in such unprecedented times, and there's unprecedented astrology to reflect it, because that's how astrology works. And so I'm going to be curious to see when we'll have to sort of wait until everybody's back in their previous sign. When Neptune gets back into Pisces and Uranus gets back into Taurus, will it be quieter? Will it be gentler I don't know. Tune in. We will see together. Another announcement I have is I'm teaching Intro to Transits Level 2 starting this Saturday. It'll be 3 Saturdays in a row, teaching all about Mercury, Venus, and Mars transit. Head over to michaellennox.com, click on my Astro School, and check that out. Oh, I think there's probably a big banner in the middle of the site to get the information. So I have a question to answer, but I also want to talk briefly just about the notion of astrology and causality and reflection. Last week was crazy. Lots of social media posts, or comments, I should say, on my posts reflected a lot of people who still seem to be a little bit stuck on thinking that the planets cause things to happen. Because I'll say, woo, crazy energy, and then someone will comment, oh, I have this today or that today, and they imagine that the difficult planetary structure that I'm talking about is going to make that thing bad. Like, oh, I have a job interview. That's going to be terrible. Oh,
they're like, damn, I won't get the job.
Exactly, right. It's like, but this energy is reflecting that you have a job interview. One woman was like, I'm getting married, and then she had tear emoji. And I was like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be a lovely, intense weekend for a wedding. Not like, oh my God, I have my wedding planned, and now Mars is going to ruin it. Right? It doesn't work like that. It's not like an unwanted guest who came to stalk you at your wedding because they don't want you to get married. Anyway, astrology reflects everything. It doesn't cause anything to happen. So I've got a question today that's actually from a friend and a colleague, Taylor Page. You can find her on Instagram at Angels and Amethyst with little underscores in between. So Taylor writes, hi, Michael and Zoe. Love the pod and all the beautiful work you put into the world. Michael, I would love to hang out with you and my aunt again soon. So yes, Taylor, we'll make a plan to float on the lake again. My question is about the significance of having your progressed sun or moon in the sign that an eclipse is happening in. For example, progressed moon in Pisces, and with this current eclipse season, it's hitting her moon very, actively. Does this have the same impact as your natal luminary placements? Thank you so much for any insight and sending so much love through these maddening times. Taylor, yes, indeed. Maddening times indeed. So, real quick, just to remind everybody what the progressed chart is. The natal chart is the map of where things were when you were born. It's organic. It's a real representation of a moment. And then we move through life, and the chart reflects your personality and archetypal makeup from birth to death. And an astrological reading is going to use the transiting planets, the moving planets currently, to help you know, like, what 2023 is going to be like, what 2025 is going to be like, what, 2026 is going to be like based on your chart. But our internal evolution is reflected by this algorithm that we can apply to the natal chart that describes year to year our inner growth. So it's actually the day correlating to the year in astrology. Just like the solar system, we have a spin of the earth, that's one day, and then 360 of them, it's a year. So since the sun moves 1 degree a day, what the algorithm does is move your birth chart 1 day for the first year of your life. 2 days after your birthday would be your second year of life, right? So Taylor's talking about the progressed sun and the progressed moon. So the sun in your progressed chart moves 1 degree every year for, as long as you live it. If you live over like 30, you're going to have progressed sun sign changes where you become different. The new sign that your sun is in is a nuance to add to your natal sun sign. Same with the moon, only the moon's much faster, right? Every 2.5 years, the progressed moon will move into a new sign and circumnavigate the whole chart in 28 years, which should clue some of you guys into the 28-day lunar cycle up in the cosmos relates to the 28-year progressed cycle in the personal progressed chart. So you can't use a transit like having a progressed moon in Pisces and the eclipse with a full moon in Pisces as a direct transit. It has to be like nuanced. You have to use it as like a glaze over. You paint a wall and it looks great, and then you put another sort of weird colory glaze on top of it to make it pop. So if the Pisces moon did blah, 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 blah to your natal moon or sun, then you interpret that, and then you add the nuance of a conjunction from the eclipse to your progressed moon. Nuance. So say the eclipse is squaring your natal moon, that's going to be a moment of breakdown and change that sort of grabs your unconscious and puts it through something so that you grow a little bit in something that might be painful. And then if your progressed moon has moved such that now this Pisces eclipse last week was on your progressed moon, it adds the nuance of a readiness to really dive into change and transformation in the way that an eclipse can, because your progressed moon, your ability now in your life to relate to spirit, to relate to the oneness, to relate to the idea that there's only one of us here and we're each individualized expressions of it. Pisces moon invented that. So you start with the transit, you add the transit to the progressed chart as a nuance, and have at it. So it's quiet, Zoe. It's a quiet time. It's actually been quiet since the equinox, right? That was sort of the last moment when we had any sort of big squeezy changes, because with the equinox, that was last week with Mars entering Scorpio. Once he squared Pluto, which was the leading factor of what made last week, that once that passed, sort of around the 24th or 25th, and The rapture didn't happen, and all is
Oh my
as it
God,
was.
I heard that people were like
Oh,
preparing
honey.
for the rapture.
Yes. Can you imagine
Wait,
the embarrassment of
yeah,
Thursday?
but do you know why it was right now specifically? Because I
You know,
remember
I
the
want to
rapture when
know.
I was
I
a
want to know
kid.
because the astrology was so intense. It was like, well, that's why,
Mm,
from an unfolding energetic place, it really was last week a crazy, unprecedented moment of ridiculously powerful death rebirth energy.
okay.
So, but I don't think the fundamentalist Christians are looking at the ephemerists. They're not
Right,
going,
right.
hey, Mars is going in. I think the rapture's coming.
Right, right,
Right?
right.
So that was curious. I didn't look up because at the end of the day, I lost interest. But I just wish, the rapture would happen. I think we'd be better off. At any rate, so it's a little bit quieter since the equinox. But I also want to mention this. In the same way that I'm not entirely certain that when Uranus and Neptune get back into Pisces and Taurus that things will slow down, part of why I say that is the astrology technique says it will, because the disruptive planet and the ideology planet that's in the sign of war, right? They get back into territory where they're not as activated or activatable.
Mhm.
But they've already activated the big changes that are returning next year, all year long, from like February to November. So that in the same way that I sometimes say the reverberation on a quiet day after a big day can be more befuddling. And the example I use is the
Right.
hard workout in a gym, a group workout. Everybody works hard, hard, hard. That's the big transit. And then everybody ends. And this one's on the floor. This one runs to the water. This one's grabbing their phone because that's what they always do. Everybody responds differently, but everybody's been through the big clang of energy. So while it's quiet this week, we may not feel that quietude in the way that we would in ordinary times because we are in extraordinary geometry and therefore extraordinary times. So, given the fact that it's kind of quiet astrologically, in some ways I had to reach just to have some things to talk about today because there's nothing happening in the 7 days that we're talking about that would be an event that I would typically talk about on the pod. But there's always enough major events each 7-day period that I'm talking about that this has never happened to us before, so where there's just nothing that would typically. So I'm going to talk about some subtler things that are happening this week, and it starts with today being the first quarter moon.
This is when you see how your seeds are growing.
And what do you do when you're looking at the seeds, some of which are growing and maybe
Making changes.
some which are not?
Yes.
And this is literal. If you put seeds in soil and water them, it's 7 days later when they're all cracking. That's the crisis that we describe at the first quarter moon. And the cracking leads to either thriving or failure. And so we very organically make a turning point towards what's thriving and what's failing. Now, that's a very specific, energetic expression, if you will. And not everybody's going to have that. It's just, that's why I say archetypally, right? Because though we plant seeds and then we turn a corner 7 days later, like that's just an image, right? That's just like I set intentions at the new moon, but it wasn't anything that 7 days later I could check,
Right.
right?
Same.
So the real thing to know about the quarter moons is that, well, at the new moon, we're in a really beautiful feminine integrated place. Sun and moon together. It's the darkest night because the moon is no longer there. And the moon is the feminine place, and planting seeds and intending growth is a feminine design. 2 weeks later, at the full moon, it's full-on masculine design, right? They're opposing each other. That's even just that. The geometry of the opposition is masculine because, unity and togetherness, that's feminine when it's done together, but pulling on each other, that's good. Pure Mars. So halfway between the new moon and the full moon, when we get to the first quarter moon, we're just in a stressful day. I call this free-floating stress. Conscious awareness and unconscious impulses at odds with each other. So it's likely to be a day where you have to make a new choice because something squeezed you out a little bit. But it might be like going somewhere else for breakfast, because your favorite place is closed for steam cleaning.
Could be minimal.
Right, it could be minimal. So I'll remind us all that Mercury is in Libra. So communication, thoughts, and mind are in balance and harmony and a kind of sense of mediation. And this is the month where Mercury will start hinting at the retrograde turnaround that happens in November, but not yet, not today. Mars in Scorpio, be here for a good another 5 weeks or so. And this is going to continue to bring intensity with things that happen in the physical world, though last week was really the big huzzah. And Venus in Virgo keeps us in organization and integration and using our emotional body to find some healing sensibility. And of course, the quarter moons are also just a marker. They're like the seasons of the lunar cycle, if you will. So there's just something to be said about the way our bodies respond to cycles in a manner that we're not always consciously aware of. We have it in our embodiment, this sort of regularity since we took our first breath. We've been going through this 4-pillar lunar consciousness. And so we all move through some kind of a free-floating stressful moment on the quarter moons just because that's the nature of the geometry. Now, this I might have talked about in any podcast, but only if there weren't, other major things to talk about. But there really is this incredible healing opportunity that Mercury and Venus are generating by interacting with Chiron. I can tell you that based on, again, social media commentary, that the last 2 weeks have had a lot of people in deep feels and really processing emotional stuff. Well, because Virgo Pisces is sort of the emotionality embodied trajectory. I mean, Cancer is more associated with our tender feelings than Pisces, but Pisces as a water sign and connected to the sensitivity of everything. And the sun in practical grounded Virgo, which represents the way our bodies work, then Virgo Pisces is kind of like that we cry, that we process emotions, and that gets us in touch with the unconscious in a way. But that was leaving people in their day-to-day experience, with weeping and crying and endings, because this was a South Node eclipse season, endings causing grief and sadness.
Yes, the endings.
Yeah, endings. If Mercury is in an opposition with Chiron, that's exact on Friday, that sets our mind and our perceptions and our need to have conversations about sort of important matters is ripe for the doing and you kind of won't be able to avoid it if there's something in there that needs to be talked about, because oppositions are dynamic. They cause something to happen. Because Mercury is in Libra, that might allow any heavy discussions to be a little bit more peaceful. And Jupiter is loosely T-squaring this opposition. So what that means for me is that I'll tell you what everybody's doing on Saturday in a minute, but if this entire little healing episode has Jupiter participating, it tells us two things. One is If this sounds like your narrative, like if you're someone who has something brewing that has to be talked about in the realm of hurt feelings and wounds that need some sort of attention, it will be difficult because squares are conflict geometry. But if Jupiter's doing the squaring, then the difficult conversation has great benefit built into it because Jupiter's in the room saying, hey, you guys work it out, because things could be so much bigger and better if you do. What Venus is doing the next day, Saturday, is giving us an opportunity to clear out our past with love. Venus, obviously, the planet of love, and the South Node is where we store the past before we're quite ready to let things go fully. So, coming out of a South Node eclipse season, now in a lunar cycle kicked off by a healing anaretic Virgo new moon, that means our sense of the past is ready to lovingly open up the doors to the, septic tank and let the shit go. The South Node is in Virgo and Venus is in Virgo, so that gives us a kind of organic felt way of being in process, whether we want it or not. Like the opposition says, you have to talk about it whether you want it or not. And then Venus and Virgo in the South Node allows for the heart to process and integrate the past easily because that's what Virgo invented. And she's just right there saying, I love you, man. Now that you've worked it out a little, let go of all of that enmity. So while Venus is lovingly holding the door open to the past, on Saturday, Mercury moves just far enough to hit Saturn in my favorite angle, the Great Eliminator, the 150-degree quincunx that suggests a fork in the road where we leave something behind. So just as it's a boon that Jupiter's participating from his exalted position in Cancer that will kiss your little boo-boo to make it feel better on Friday, and you add to that Saturn's participation on Saturday, then both of the social planets are engaged. That means these are events that I'm describing will happen in your experience in your life, in your community, with your circles. Jupiter says, if you do this, it gets better. Saturn says, you can't wait anymore. Sorry, wiggle room is over. Change the track onto a more healed path because I said so. Saturn, he's daddy. We will be right smack dab in the full moon in Pisces. It hits Monday night around 8:47. Don't hold me to the fire about that. It's definitely in the evening Pacific time in the sort of 7, 8, 9 o'clock hour. It's the Pacific time standard and daylight. That's why I can't land. So we move from like the healing connection that Virgo brings to the relationship dynamic that Libra invented. So if the sun is in Libra, we're in conscious awareness of us in balance and harmony with the outside world. I love to say in the world of Libra, it's where we learn how to make the world our beloved so that all loving experiences come after that or from that or through that.
That's beautiful.
Well, yay.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's also the sign where we know peace, stasis, coming into balance when knocked out of balance. Mm-hmm. Well, Aries is the knocked out of balance energy from just the fire, right? So if we're releasing anything in a full moon, which all full moons are about, in the Aries modality, it's going to be about either taming your impulse control problems and learning how to like pull away from fire and remember Libra's promise that balance and harmony, is sort of the point on one level. And if you don't have enough fire, if you're passivity that Libra also invented is getting you in a place where you don't feel like you're able to activate. This is also the full moon for you because you can release the sort of antithetical energy to Aries that says, I don't have enough fire. I like the fact that we're in a full moon in Aries and Neptune is still there, still in Aries, so that the energy of the full moon has the blessings of the Great Spirit fully sort of pouring that energy into the lunation because it's in the same sign that the lunation is happening in. By the third week of this month, he will be back in Pisces, but I like that he's in Aries now. So Mercury will have just joined Mars in Scorpio. So if Neptune's at 0 degrees of Aries and Mercury's at 0 degrees of Scorpio, that's an inconjunct. That's a 150-degree tug of war, push and pull, where the lower octave of the mind, Mercury, has jumped into the cauldron, right, of Plutonian change. Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, says that Mercury is now in territory where it's all about the change. And I'd say if it's Mercury dealing with change, then it's about perceiving what's happening through the lens of, well, this is for us, or this is positive, or I can work with these changes instead of pushing back and saying, this should not be happening. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of things out there right now that should not be happening, but they are happening. Mercury in Scorpio can help us be with that perception, and Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury, and Mercury and Uranus passing through this like release mechanism, I think we can let go of a lot of anxious thoughts. You know, Gemini, where Uranus is, invented anxiety and looking at things from both sides so much that you get twisted looking back and forth at each decision possibility. So the full moon is a moment to also sort of clean up your perception and your communication to sort of match the times. At any rate, I'm not going to say any more of this because it's a week away, but I just wanted you to know that when we meet again, it will be time to jump into the full moon in Aries. Meanwhile, enjoy the quiet-ish week and have at it.
Did you know that Michael has a daily astro alert? If you enjoy hearing the weekly astrology, you might like knowing more about each day. When you subscribe for the daily astro alerts, you'll get an in-depth explanation of the day's astrology sent right to your email. Subscriptions are only $10 a month, or you can purchase the yearly subscription at the reduced price of $100. To subscribe, head over to michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. This week we have an email and dream from Charity. Happy belated birthday. She mentions it's her birthday soon.
Oh, yay. Happy birthday, Charity.
Charity says, Dear Dr. Michael and Zoe, first off, thank you for your show. I love starting my week while listening. I've always had bizarre dreams, some would call nightmares, but for the most part, am able to interpret the meaning since I was a young kid. This one I dreamt last night after having woke up around 3 a.m. and struggling to fall back asleep. I was visiting a childhood family friend's home. The family was much like my aunt, uncle, and cousins growing up. My mother and father met them in a church group in Miami and both got married, having 4 kids each, all of us within a couple months of each other. We played a lot at their house and in the yard.
Oh, we're still in setup.
Yes, this is the setup.
Okay, we're still in context. We're like, what a complicated dream. Okay, got it. Visiting, yeah. Go ahead.
So in the dream, she was visiting the friend's home, and then that was all the context.
Right, and the context is that this friend feels like family.
Yes.
In a cousin-y kind of way.
Mm-hmm. I was at the age I am now. Only one of the kids stopped by to visit while I was there with his wife. She didn't seem to care for my visiting, so no interaction. It was night and I was watching out the sliding door as we sat around the living room. I saw 2 large owls doing what looked like a mating dance. And as I got up to see if I could take some pictures, Nate, my childhood friend, did too. We went out to investigate. We wandered around the yard and came to sit on a bench next to a tree we used to climb. We were having casual conversation, nothing I remember. I looked up the tree and noticed a long boa constrictor that was green with purple spots, with yellow around those spots. But suddenly I heard buzzing, and we started to look around, seeing a purple hummingbird with a green belly flying around us. I then looked back at the tree and saw a second boa constrictor. We decided to go and leave them alone. As we walked back to the house, there was a room off the side for their business, and I saw a light on and some old pictures and kids' artwork laying on the ground inside. Someone came out and invited me in. They seemed familiar. I started talking to her, and she inquired about the things I was holding. She seemed to become animated and explained they were pictures of her birthday when she was a little girl. As I looked closer, I recognized her as their daughter who had died the same day in that office as I had a scary accident and injured myself. At the same time, she didn't really look like her. She looked like me. And then I woke up.
Well, I love that she, saw that it was her, and then she woke up. That's fabulous. It's like 2 guys at Starbucks writing a movie with a dream in it.
Right.
It's like, and then they turn around and it's her. And then she wakes up with a start. All right. Well, of course, you're dreaming about things that rose up in your psyche when you were a kid, right? That's because you're visiting that. In fact that you're the age that you are now and visiting a childhood home makes it quite almost literal that you are in present moment needing to take a look at something that sort of like rose up back at whatever age you think might be being, sort of played out in your memory. If you don't have a specific age from the dream experience, then I would just choose the age that you know to be like the juicy one. Like for me, I know it was 8 years old because, man, that was a juicy year. At any rate, something from the home is needing your attention. There's just something interesting about the wife not being, interested. And somehow that relates to this family being not blood family, but somehow related, as if one family married the other when they met and created a lifelong friendship that was just like family. So you see, I'm trying to show the binary there and somehow associate that the childhood pattern has something to do with maybe your family versus their family. Was it different? Were you safer in one place than the other? Nate specifically plays a part in this because it ain't his dream. Nate represents whatever psyche or part of your psyche that needs to sort of be looked at because he's there. Now, owls are medicine that help us with shadow work. Owls are nocturnal, so nighttime is feminine and connected to the shadow. They are ferocious predators, and so that gives them the sort of juicy power of shadow that they are of that intensity that life, brings and offers. And they can see almost 360 degrees around them and at night. So that's like tremendous vantage point in a shadowy territory. And because it's nighttime, in the dream, we know that chastity is visiting the shadow. I'll also add this about owls. There's often in many cultures associations between owls and death and sightings of owls and death. That superstition isn't interesting to me, but what is interesting to me that sort of cultural idea is a shadow idea. There's something about the sliding door that to me is reflecting just how easy this perspective change could be, right? A door is a transition and a choice, but it's also kind of a window where you see where you're going to go. But it's both, right? It's a window and a door. It's a floor wax and a dessert topping. So that just struck me as a visual suggesting the ease of looking at things. I'm reminding even of the movie Sliding Doors, where a woman fractures into two versions of herself when faced with a conflict. And so there's two versions of lots of stuff. The Nate and his wife, the two owls who are mated, right? So that's an integration being expressed around shadow and also is reflecting this binary of like two. You and Nate are one of those binaries of two. You leave the originating location to go where the important thing is, right? You're attracted by looking more deeply at the shadow, and Nate represents a masculine archetype that's ready and willing to do that work, whether it's inside of you or reflecting male partnership in your life. That he goes out when the owls call you means that there's a helpful aspect right there in the form of what Nate is reflecting in terms of like qualities needed at this time. Pictures are about memory. That's why we take pictures, to remember things. So that you going out to take pictures says, like, I want to remember this moment feels important, this change, this transformation, this shadow exploration is important. I want to remember it, but it also sort of harkens to the photographs that show up later that are really about childhood memories, right? So it's really interesting that it starts with an adult idea to really sort of see the memory and capture it while also having to consider later in the dream what the childhood version of that memory might be. I may be overemphasizing this, but tree climbing is joyful, right? It's a joyful activity. Nobody somber is climbing a tree. Although I used to climb this pine tree at my dad's house and cry. So I had great motivation. I needed the privacy to be in my little boy's sadness. I know. But I like the idea that two childhood friends are at a tree where they used to climb, because that's also a memory. It's a memory to take back, and the tree of life, take back to a branch of that tree that maybe was more joyful and playful. So think about what that might mean in your waking life right now, Charity. Snakes are about change and transformation, primarily because of the shedding of skin concept. Every third grader learns that in the Western world, that snakes shed their skin and the new skin is already ready as it sort of pushes the old skin off. And so they are a good symbol for changes and transformations that happen like that quickly, where you just shed an old experience and emerge changed. That's why snakes on the caduceus of the physician's logo. Even the snake of the first, the Old Testament is a transformative figure. But boa constrictor is interesting because they kill by smothering. Smothering is a great word that we use to describe relationships that are boundaryless and overwhelming. So there's a smothering thing that I'm curious about that's up in the tree of life, right? So that if it's up in the branches of what we're calling the symbolic tree of life, then there's something about the changes that are happening now, or that maybe the changes through all of life. The theme of being smothered or smothering has to be somewhere in there. And I just invite you to look at that, Charity, because why a boa? Why not a snake that kills with venom? I love using the colors here. It's a green boa constrictor, which is the color of the heart center. And purple is violet. Violet and purple are the same. That's the crown chakra. So we've got a call to come into the heart. And remember, the snake is green, so that's like you're in the heart, like the thing is in the heart. And there are these purple spots that remind us of our connection to the divine through the upward consciousness. And they're surrounded by yellow, the color of our gut instincts and our ability to kind of like know things are unsafe before our mind even knows. So now I'm making an association with smothering and an ability to sort of notice sooner when there's danger and there might be a change needed around that, which is why the snake is there. Hummingbirds are about joy. All birds are messengers because they fly through the air. So there's something about intellect or thought forms that all birds represent. They're kind of messengers in that way. So then you look to the qualities of the bird in question to sort of round out the interpretations. And I mean, I challenge you to look at a hummingbird and not feel a little smile across your face. They're just amazingly adorable, and they're fabulous, colorful, unusual movement that darts hither and to and from is just like joy. You can't look at joy without feeling it instantly, and you can't look at a I mean, I'm sure there are people who think hummingbirds are awful, and, haters gonna hate. But I charge that hummingbirds bring joy. So there's joy floating around here. And then the second snake comes in and kind of says, okay, the change and transformation is ready. It is at hand. You have the two, the binary of opposites are going to create a transcendent third. So that's why you need two of something, like mother-father creates child. And in this case, snake creates great transformation that can lead to joy. But you gotta kind of leave the process alone. Don't fuck with it. Don't escapism your way out of it. Don't change the subject. Stay in the process and do some exploration. That's the side room where there's a light. It's dark. It's night. So a light in the room says, ooh, ideas, consciousness. There's a bright little idea over there. And it's about considering the past because the pics are old. There's kids' art there, which to me is also very joyful. It's a joyful image to see weird, horribly drawn stick figures, with a child's whimsy in it. So this familiar figure that comes in to guide is some sort of, consciousness of guidance. The fact that it's her birthday as a little girl then doubles down that there's something about childhood and restoring a kind of innocence that might have been lost by childhood conflicts that resulted in being in like smothering experiences. The change is already happening. Leave it be and let it happen, but do consider the past. And just by recognizing that the woman who's connected to her birthday as a little girl is actually you, that tells us even more so that whatever process this dream is reflecting, it's on the downhill side of completion, because that's the trope. I mean, the silly way you'd write a dream for a movie would have the sort of figure that's chasing you ominously. You finally turn around and it's you, which is, of course, what it is. It's always us. It's always us, and it's always us, right? So the fact that there's a recognition there from her as the witness in her own dream tells me she's at the aha moment of her growth journey. Like, she can't unsee that.
Right.
And to me, that's all that needs to be revealed. The dream suggests that she's often running into the next chapter now that she recognizes the young aspect of self that she's working with is her.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the Daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.